Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the single player Let's Play series. So today I think we kind of already got a start on our resin and latex production last episode, but today we're actually going to do something with it. But before I do that, if you'll remember at the end of the last episode we made a big mess of podzol, so I'm going to try to get some more podzol made up, or some of that podzol replaced I should say. But before we do that, of course, we're going to need more brass because we have finally flown through all of ours. At some point, we may get this guy, this big fella here, auto-crafting, but I really don't know that that's something we can afford to do at the moment. To no surprise here, we are actually not going to have enough energy coming out of you. Is it you, or I can't really tell which pipe it is. It is quite difficult to tell which one was the problem there, but that was still way quicker. I think we're good. I would be willing to bet it was probably the pipe itself that was the shortcoming, but we'll worry about that. We'll fuss with it if we need to at another point. Anyways, all that brass said, the exchanging gadget here is another one of the building gadgets. I don't use it that often, but it is pretty helpful for cleaning up pretty big messes like the one that we made with the podzol and the giant tree last episode. We're going to need some MV wire coil. I've got some that is already insulated, so we're just going to pull the insulation off of there using the wire cutters. And then we should just need a steel rod and some of these guys here, which, let's see, it looks like most of that stuff was auto-craftable, right? Well, no, we just need glass and a nickel plate. So we can do plates in the multi-server press if we wanted to, and I will just for the convenience here. But again, that is not by any means something that I plan on having take over our auto-crafting for the time being. I do really like this existing setup. So we will come over here and make these and then those into an exchanging gadget, just like so. Once again, our exchanging gadget should eventually fill, right? Did I mess something up over here? You're full. You're moving. Interesting. I wonder if I messed something up over here. Let's go investigate. Seems like this guy might be offline. Yeah, you are. This is a little weird. Huh, let me investigate. I spotted the problem. I accidentally left the system on here. This system takes up a lot of... I was making the speed upgrades, and the system takes up a lot of compression, a lot of air pressure whenever running. There we go. So it should start returning back to normal, and then once it gets up to 10 bar, it should be good to go. Okay, that's a little bit a little bit funny on my side, but totally my fault. I am a little curious. I thought I should have had two of these, but that's okay. Not a problem. Should really actually make this a door. A framed door. That would be ideal. That way I can more easily access in here whenever needed. Oh wow, it actually changes the light values in here. Interesting. Interesting. I didn't know that it did that. So you should be getting up to, yeah. Okay, good. We're good. Cool. Well, I'm going to give that a few minutes to catch up, so that way it can start refilling all my flux usage, because, yeah, you're even drained. Okay. My fault. My fault entirely. I forget to turn this off. I might do, like, a fallback timer on that or something. That would be interesting to do. And there we go. It is now starting to fill itself up. This is, by the way, not the fastest wireless flux refill that we could set up for ourselves, but it is one of the faster ones, and so that works out just fine. So anyways, we've got a good bit of grass here, and so what I'm going to do is just fill in all the podzol with grass. So I'll shift right click to pick the block I want to replace, And then if I go to the radial menu here, we can choose our surface. We can choose whether or not to make it fuzzy, choose whether or not to select a surface or a connected surface or a variable surface, which I'm going to keep it connected. And if I look here, you can see we can highlight and toggle through all of the podzol and replace it all just like so. And if we do the same thing there, unfortunately it does break our grass, but that's all right. And a piece of podzol here and there I'm not going to worry about too much, but I think this should be all of them. And so there we go. Much easier form of getting things nice and cleaned up, and that just got us a bunch of dirt, and we can bone meal it up if we really wanted to, which may as well. I do like things nice and bone mealed up, just so that it looks nice and natural and overgrown through here. I've been doing this thing where I'll usually break down the too tall grass, not because I don't like it, but just because it makes it harder to see around areas. And so what I do is I leave the too tall grass up if it's in an area that I want to look overgrown, like a poorly kept yard. But for the most part, I do try to break that down whenever it's somewhere that actually kind of is important, or if any amount of significance really in general. I try to keep the too tall grass and the flowers out of. So yeah, we'll put up a couple of fences over here with a couple of lanterns. Probably going to do copper in this area over here. I do really like the copper lanterns. I got to replace a lot of these with the coppers anyway. So we can do like a little lamp post here, and we'll set it up all nice and pretty. Let's do I have any stone brick? Yep. Okay, great. We'll do a wall and then like 2 of these, maybe even 3, and we'll do angled lanterns like so. I think that looks just fine. Again, too tall grass, not desirable in this space. And so this area here, we're going to kind of go through and do a lot of stuff with today. First thing I want to do is teach a couple more recipes, a couple of new ones really. And so the biggest one that I want to teach is stuff for XNet. So today we're going to be getting into XNet, and XNet is one of my favorite mods as far as like transfer of items goes, because it's just so dang convenient. It's hard to refute how good it is. So if you pull up XNet, by the way, the mod itself is called XNet. Unfortunately, there's another mod in this pack called Flux Networks, and the X in the end of Flux combined with net in the beginning of Networks means that Flux Networks also shows up in this list. So if you ever see that, don't be confused. Just know that's what's going on. So there are a couple of components here that I want to teach because we are definitely missing a good few of these. So I need you to know how to make redstone repeaters, right? Because you don't know how to do that yet, if I'm correct. Yep, okay. So you need to know how to make redstone. You already know how to make redstone torches. Good, okay. Redstone comparators, redstone repeaters. That'll just be convenient anyways. And then for a controller, we're going to need a machine frame. You know how to make most of these things, but you need to know how to make blue dye, I believe. And then to do the rest of this is just raw resource. So that is very convenient. Come down over here. I will more than likely make up a new row for XNet stuff because there's a lot of XNet stuff. So definitely look forward to getting into it, but I also know that there is a lot ahead of us. Sorry, I wanted like this. Perfect. In fact, I'll flip these two, and I'll also put pistons here. And yeah, that's good enough. Whatever, fine. Okay, so now we can make a controller, because we'll probably need a couple more controllers throughout this pack anyway. Now, I also want to make cable. I'm going to just make blue cable, because personally, I don't care what color it is, and we have blue dye pretty much always, whereas all the other dyes means we might have to go pick flowers. So definitely feels a little more convenient to just stick with blue, in my opinion. So most of these things we already have. However, the improved pipes are a little bit expensive and not easily automated at this stage of the game, so I'm going to stick with these. And so you know how to make everything here, right? I think. Do you know how to make copper wire? You don't. Well, that's okay. I can teach you. Let's teach you this method. And then we can put this over here. So we've got wires there. And then you'll know how to make couple of different components. We'll put this over here with that. And then somewhere, yeah, right here, I've got those already set up. And so now I can teach you, hey, go ahead and use these, but use the tier 1 pipes for this, because it doesn't matter which pipe you use anyway. So let's go ahead and use the ones that you know how to craft. Like I said, you know how to craft these, so that's perfect. And we'll teach you that. And then to make one into a controller, or rather a connector, you're going to need, again, one of these attachments. And we already know how to make the basic attachments. So we just need to figure out, for these, it is the resonant attachment. Okay, yeah, that's not bad. I thought it was a mix. I couldn't remember which recipe I set it to. So you know how to make all these things, so that is good as well. And so we will go ahead and do that and that. And so at this point, we'll just need to set up probably a little mini autocraft setup for a couple of smithing recipes if we really wanted to get into this. But otherwise, we should be good to go. Alrighty, so we're going to make ourselves 7 improved connector attachments, and then the extractor attachments, and we're going to turn those into advanced using Enderium. Now that they are turned into advanced, we can go ahead and get ourselves some connectors and some other things automated. Let's go ahead and get 7 of these. Should be pretty quick. And then the cabling here should be, let's go ahead and get another stack. Should be pretty cheap. And let's go ahead and get that controller. All of these things are just auto crafting recipes, so very, very, very nice to have. And now I'm going to do one more little aside. I know this is going to be kind of all over the place, but I want to get into Flux Networks. I did just discuss this mod previously, but Flux Networks is pretty straightforward. You take some redstone, you go down to bedrock layer, and you take your piece of obsidian, put it on top, and basically convert the redstone into flux. So let me go to bedrock layer really quickly. I'll go ahead and get that set up, and I'll show you guys how that looks when you actually get it done. Alright, so down here at bedrock layer, we are going to turn off our magnet capability. Oh, it already was. Good. We're going to throw this redstone on the ground. We're going to put a piece of obsidian on top, and we're going to left-click the obsidian. And that is going to turn all of that into flux dust. And that is our introduction to Flux Networks. However, there certainly is a lot more to it. But essentially, Flux Networks are going to allow us to have wireless flux, and that's not really like a big goal of mine to have, but this area over here is kind of out of the way, and we need to power our controller, so this seems to be probably one of the more convenient ways to do this. And so with that, we're also going to need to get some more Enderium, because we're going to have to get some unobtainium. And so that's going to unlock one part of the quest, right? And then unobtainium is a material made out of Enderium that is created by throwing Enderium through a portal going to the Nether. And by doing that, we did this, I think, a couple episodes ago. But by doing that, we are going to be able to turn this into unobtainium. And unobtainium can be automated. Once you make 1 or 2, you can make, I think it's 4 specifically, you can make basically infinite unobtainium, and that is perfectly intended. It's sort of one of those things that is a pain to make. If you have to keep on making it like this, it just becomes worse and worse and worse. And so to counteract that mechanic being a pain of having to make it through the nether portal, you can in fact make an unobtainium block out of 4 of these, and then when you smelt it in the arc furnace, you'll get 5 back. And so that's sort of one of the more niche mechanics of this pack, but since unobtainium is already unobtainable, the mechanics and properties of it are still a little bit unpredictable and out of the ordinary. So you'll see we get 5, and now we can continue and make more, and you see each time we do this, we're going to profit 1 unobtainium, and that's going to be a part of the Flux core recipe itself, which is why we had to go this far. The unobtainium recipe is used in a couple of places just to kind of ground your ability to progress every now and then. But this does not take too terribly long to do, and once you get the flow of it, and it can be automated, come on, there we go, then you start to actually profit a little more quickly. So you'll see here we're actually going to profit by 2, and so it becomes exponential. The growth becomes exponential pretty quickly, which is nice. So I'm going to do this for a couple more reps and try to get a little bit more unobtainium out of this since we're already doing so well. And I'll be back when we have a decent supply. All right, I think that should be plenty of unobtainium for now. Again, I'm probably going to keep just one singular block in my, maybe even like 8 blocks in my network so I never accidentally spend them because they're not used for anything really. That way we can always renew those later down the line. So, again, Flux networks. We want to get into a Flux controller, which you can see is going to require a couple of these. Let's go ahead and get... how are we doing on blaze rods? Not super great. But you can be crushed. Yep, okay, good. So then, we want to get ourselves a couple of Eyes of Ender. I'm going to say like 8, maybe 9. And then we're going to grab some flux cores, and then we can make ourselves a flux controller, which is going to be made out of flux blocks. That's what, 5? Ah, we are already out of flux cores again. You'll go through these a lot. It's actually slightly frustrating. So there's our Flux controller. The Flux controller I'm probably just going to put down here. This is the root of your network. And what's fun about Flux networks is they are completely wireless. They don't connect to each other directly at all. And then we're just going to call this Jose. All right, let's just call this main, actually, because it's just a single player world. We know who this is. So we're just going to do private and create a network. And you can choose your color. You can do whatever you want. But here you can actually see the name, and you'll see the name of this, which is just Flux controller. So that's perfect. And then we're going to want a Flux plug to receive energy from adjacent blocks. And so this is going to allow us, oops, that is not what I wanted to do. I get the 2 grids mixed up far too often. Flux plug here, this is going to receive energy from a pipe or from a capacitor. And I want to have it also put energy into an adjacent machine or block or capacitor. So we're going to take a flux point to do that for us, because we want to basically avoid having to run wires all the way over here. For now, I'm still going to run wiring and piping wherever I can, because I don't want to be lazy about this, right? But I do definitely I struggle to see a point in setting everything up with a long wire line just for some machines that are going to be sipping energy. This controller setup that I'm about to set up here is pretty minimal and is not going to require all that much work to configure. So I've got this HV accumulator here. I think it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to put it here. It doesn't really matter. I was thinking actually, and this might not be a bad idea still, to put it on one of the main sets over here, but they're such a pain to get to that I fear it might not be worthwhile after all. So maybe we do just stick with this one. So we're going to put our flux plug. I always get these mixed up. Receives energy from adjacent blocks, adding energy to your flux network. I'm going to put this here. You'll see it's going to connect, but it's not going to do anything yet because I have to give it a network. Once I've done that, you'll see that it's going to start to fill up. You can't really see it all that well, unfortunately, because at this stage, everything is pretty conceptual. Like there's not a lot like you actually will see quite yet, but we will get there very shortly. And so what we're going to do now is the following. So we have a couple of things that we can do, and so we're going to do, how many connectors do we have? 7? That should be fine. Let's grab liquid hoppers. I think these would be incredibly helpful to have, which is going to require some glass, so let's go ahead and grab a stack of that. Should not take us too long to get those. And so, let's do, yeah, that sounds good. We'll do liquid hoppers, and we're going to need, what did we end up doing, 16? Yeah, we're going to need 16 liquid hoppers. So let's go and do 15 normal hoppers, and grab way more of you. And we're going to need more compressed iron. So that will take a little while. While that does its thing, though, let's go ahead and grab some buffer tanks. We'll already have a couple of them anyways. We can use the fluid tanks here. I don't know that that would be a terrible idea. We can also just use the pneumatic craft tanks. I don't really know that it matters, so I'm probably just going to use the create ones. But my plan at the moment is as follows. Each one of these will have a fluid hopper underneath. Why aren't you full? Or did you just empty everything into here? No. Strange. Very strange. Mode. Leave to filter. That's actually really cool. I have not played with these before, so this is entirely new to me. However, I can already tell that we're going to need... Oh, one of them had latex in it. Maybe it was this one. Certainly wasn't telling me that it had latex in it. So we are going to need these to connect kind of the opposite of that, really. There we go. We'll have them connect into a 3x3 tank. So let's go ahead and get 3 more of these. And so what I hope to see... Yep, that seems to be exactly what I was hoping for. Perfect. Is that everything will go into this one large-bodied tank, and so these will start to empty out. And they're not the fastest, but they're not producing that quickly either, so I don't see really much problem with that. And that will just work. So we'll do the same thing over here. You have to be careful not to break the block underneath the tree base, otherwise it actually will disqualify it as functioning as a tree, and your arboreal extractors will no longer function. So you do have to be careful to preserve that. Let's grab these really quickly because we're going to need them again. In fact, we're probably going to have issues with this guy. Let's go ahead and grab the fluid hoppers we're going to need. Put those there. Much easier to do when you've already got the tank down. So note that if you're going to copy the same setup. So these are also all filled but draining. Perfect. So that is latex on its own. And so what I'm going to do is just start to dig down here such that we can actually access these little buffers here. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. And my goal is to get everything configured. Aha, I made that perfectly aligned. I did not know if that was quite the right measurement, but turns out it was. Heck yeah. We're going to come over here and get a couple things set up a little bit. Get a torch or two down here as well. So for this part here, I don't think we can really do anything except fluid pipe things out, I guess. So I'll probably use immersive for this because I don't know that there's much that I can do to make this not, like, ridiculously bad. So maybe we just do a 2x2 resin tank. Like so. And then what we can do is have all of our pipes here, obviously connected like so. Maybe not connected like so. Maybe we connect them. Interesting. Give me a minute. This one's a little weird. Okay, this is a weird setup, but it should work. We'll put a liquid hopper down here, and then another one down here. So you should be filling with resin that's going into here, that's going into here. So I know it's a little confusing. Just follow as well as you can. We're also going to do the same thing over here. I wish that there was an easier way to do this part, but that's all right. Oh, that actually worked out in my favor. Okay, and so then... There we go. So you're going to start to empty into you as well. And then we are going to do the same thing over here, except with way less space now because we're doing two of them side by side, which makes this really compact, but also a little bit goofy to get through and get around. So forgive me for what I'm doing here, but it's also like the cheapest way to do this with connectors, because connectors are not cheap. So we'll do you, we'll do you. And then we will do the same thing over here. So that would be one of you. And then another of you. Again, just got to move that there. And so now these two are going to start to fill up. You can see they have actually already filled all the way. I'm just going to level out this space here. And what this allows us to do is connect with one singular connector here, which is incredibly cheap and incredibly stingy. But that's my point. That's my goal. So now we're just going to run this down. We're going to hook up a connector here, and a cable in between to make them cross-connect. Like so. And so the purpose of XNet is we've just created a tiny little network where each connector here is connected to something. Well, we have connectors here connecting to the resin tanks, which I'm going to name this one resin tanks, and we're going to have this one named latex tank right, and this one over here named latex tank left. So now the only thing left to do is to actually configure this and make this work in a way that makes any sense at all. So let us grab that controller. We also have our flux point, which you'll see the purpose of in just a moment. And I'm just going to go ahead and put the controller here. Wherever you put the controller, you have to have a connector. So I can put it down here, but it's not going to connect because there's no connector. So keep that in mind. I'm just going to put this here so that I can use the same connector, because connectors can connect on all 6 sides of like the facing block. So you could surround it completely if you kind of wanted to. So now if I right click on this, you're going to see that it's going to pull up all of our tanks. So you'll see the resin tanks here, these 2 tanks. If I double click one of these, it's going to show me exactly which one it's talking about. So if I'm ever confused, I can double click and it'll tell me which one. So that's that one, and then this one here is the one right here. If I'm not sure which one is the tank on the right, I just double click it and it'll pull me up to the tank on the right. You'll see it requires energy to run this guy though, and that is muy unfortunate because I don't normally run energy over here. That's why we set this up. So I ran this all the way this way, and it looks like you're not actually receiving energy from that that accumulator. Okay, that might just be Flux Networks works a little oddly. Give me just a sec to see if I can fix that pretty easily. That was a PEBCAC issue. Problem exists between keyboard and computer. I set this to be an input. It needs to be an output. There we go. Plus 1000 FE is the current buffer. That's what I was expecting to see earlier, and I just thought that maybe Flux Networks had changed because I haven't used it in a short while. Not actually all that long, but 118 things have changed a little bit. And so now, if I come over here, we should see that you have energy. Yes, you do. Perfect. So that was the purpose of this flux point, was just to give us the ability to have network energy pretty easily accessible to us. Now, what is our network here, this little controller subnetwork setup that I've made? What is this going to even do for us, right? You might be wondering, what the heck is the purpose of this even? Well, the purpose of this is for us to easily move fluids around. That way we don't have to make this ridiculously expensive. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the enderium I made earlier, and we're going to probably need an extra fluid cell or 2. Actually, we're going to need 4 by my calculations. And we're also going to need a smithing table. I do wish that there was a portable smithing table of sorts. That would be really convenient, but that's okay. We actually already had one over here. Duh. Let's see. Fluid cell. Done. Perfect. And we're going to turn these into dimensional cell or dimensional tanks as well, because you know how much I like those. And we're going to grab our controllers, sorry, our connectors, because I accidentally put them away earlier. And what we can do is very easily move around our fluid sources. So I'm going to break those two cables we had here and replace them for connectors. And I'm going to put down dimensional tanks here and here. We're going to name these dimensional tanks, of course. So of course, we're going to set them to private to me. We're going to put them on frequencies 3 and frequency 4. So what we can do now, you can see these are also connected, and you can tell exactly which one is which. So we're going to name this one resin tank, and we're going to name this one latex tank. Now, the interest here, the thing that I'm looking to do, and part of why we have this network here, is because I'm also wanting to do one other thing. And I'm actually going to show you guys a little trick while I do this as well, because we're starting to get a little bit cramped for space here. So I might clean this up a little bit. We might take these two and move them here and here. Just like so. And then I'm going to take my flux point and break it. And that may seem counterintuitive to you, but you can hook up flux to these. So what I'm going to do is make a channel, and we're going to make this an energy channel, xnet.energy, and we're going to call this flux delivery. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose our flux point here, and we're going to extract energy from the flux point and insert it into our own device, into our own machine. So you'll see that now that we've kickstarted our machine with, what, 100,000 RF, it's going to be able to run for just long enough to be able to grab its own energy from here again. So you'll see now we're constantly using 3FE to run this tiny little controller here. Now, there's more to this because we're going to have to set up advanced processing in the future. You've probably already seen where that's going to be headed anyway, because I've already sort of alluded to the... Oops, that's not right. I've already alluded to the necessity to set up some pretty interesting stuff using... Ooh, this is already getting extra messy now. Oh, you know what we could do? We could use facades. Facades are actually really great, and I will show you why in just a moment. Sorry, I am just trying to kind of calculate all of our possibilities here because there's just so much that we can do with this setup. So let's grab some facades. These facades are a little bit different, but they're pretty cheap. And if I right-click on the block that I want them to copy and then put them on any of these, I can cover them up fully. So we'll just do something like this, just to make this a little easier. And anytime you're holding a facade or a pipe item, it's going to show you all your hidden or all your hidden blocks and facaded locations as well, which I absolutely love. It makes it so much easier to do all of this craziness that we're doing here. But my entire intention here is that we will at some point very, very, very soon have a way to get plastic out of this. I'm sorry, not plastic, rubber. So we will need a blast chiller, and that'll probably be next episode's content, but we, for now, can at least start extracting and moving stuff around here. But I also want to automatically do the blast chilling over here as well, and so this is going to allow us that expandability really, really easily, like surprisingly easily, I think. I think you'll be surprised. So what we'll do is make another channel, and we're going to call this XNet Fluid. We'll create it, and we are going to call this the latex channel. And we're going to extract from latex left and latex right. And we're going to insert into this dimensional tank here. And so you'll see this dimensional tank currently is filling up, and these are emptying. And we can do the same thing, XNet Fluid, and we can call this resin channel. And we can extract from these two and insert into our one remaining tank here. And that guy is also going to start to fill up with resin. So that will help us out pretty significantly. So at this point, we have the automation of these fluids, but we just don't have any way to use them yet. And we will absolutely get to that very soon. Again, that's probably a next episode problem more than anything, but I want to currently deal with the management and importing of these fluids. So let's do that. Let's grab some import buses. We'll need 2 of these. Let's grab some detectors. I don't know that I have these on autocraft, but they are not too terribly difficult to do. So let's do that as well, and I'll just sit here on standby. All right, so that makes for 2 detectors and 2 importers. So what we can do at this point, right, we have our large fluid grid up there, our large fluid drive, and we've got our fluid external storage here. But what we can do is we can get ourselves a refined storage line with some cable hooked up to some detectors. And so what we can set up here is detect fluids, and we will need to set these guys up with fluids. So that would be 3 and 4. Okay. So doing these 2 here. And actually, you know, I realize now we probably, there's a thing you can do with refined storage where you can drag and drop fluids in. Yeah, that's actually all we need to do is just drag a fluid in here. And so now it is going to emit a redstone signal anytime, change that to fluids, anytime there is exactly 0 resin in our system. Well, there is currently exactly 0 resin in our system. What we really want it to do is to emit anytime we are greater than, see, I don't know what the unit is here, so we're gonna have to figure that out. I don't know if it's buckets or millibuckets, so this will be a little tricky. A little tricky. Let me grab, I have an idea. Let's grab the fluid grid up here and just temporarily move it downstairs so that way we can see this in real time. Because I'm not completely certain, unfortunately, what the situation is here. Because I'm not very experienced with fluids. So it looks like it's buckets. So whenever there are... let's do... Who made the fluid cell or fluid... Where is it? Where is it? It is... the fluid storage part. This one here should be 4,096 buckets? That's what I'm not sure about. That is what I'm not sure about. So let's just play with this and see. Let's do 40... I don't know. Let's do 128 buckets. Let's only import 128 buckets worth. So we want to... emit a redstone signal anytime we are less than 128 buckets, and then we're going to put, this one was resin, so frequency 4, and then frequency 3. And what I'm going to do is put the importers down. The importers are only going to try to import items right now, which is great. We want not to ignore the redstone signal in this case. We want to only work with redstone signal. So these are only going to import whenever we have less than 128 millibuckets of resin or latex. And so we imported, and I'm guessing that that's... I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. I truly don't know. I think this is millibuckets. So let's do... I don't know. Let me test this. I'm really not sure. So I believe that is millibuckets, because if we do, let's do 64,000, that's going to turn off because we have that much. In fact, if we do 79,000, off. If I change this to 80,000, should turn on. Yeah, okay, so that is definitely millibuckets. So let's fix that. Here and here. So millibuckets, there are obviously 1,000 millibuckets in one bucket. And so that is, apparently when we had it set to 128, that was 128 millibuckets, but the importer imports one whole bucket at a time. And so that was actually causing a little bit of issue, not issue, but like a little bit of confusion in my head, because it should have been 128 millibuckets, not one whole bucket. But again, it was just rounding up because the importers import one whole millibucket at a time. In fact, you can see we're still at 79, even though it is importing every now and then, and that's because I think the exact number is a little bit different. It's not exactly 79. I think it's like 79 point something, but we can't see that. We don't really have any way of knowing that. So there we go. That is fluid management in a nutshell. That is quite the system we have there. I actually want to go back downstairs, not only to fix these, but to also take a look at our fluid cell and see how we're doing. So yeah, you can see here we have stored 182,000 millibuckets of fluid in here. So that means we probably have some remainders. At 225 at the end is just clearly a couple of remainders from you know, the sub or the insertion into our system from the other constant, I guess, input from our system over here is what I'm trying to say. So there we have it. These should all be empty and good to go. Looks like it, seems like it. If I check out down here, you're doing your thing. These are completely empty, completely empty, completely empty. Perfect, that's what I wanted to see. So it seems as though our system is just marvelously working. I can't see any major issues with this. Of course, there is, of course, the entire concern around not always having the ability to auto-craft with this, which we can auto-craft, but we can't do like the auto-insertion when crafting with it. I don't think we can do that unless we have buckets, maybe? Honestly, I'm not super certain on that. But this system here should be pretty dang scalable and good for us going forward. And what I'll probably end up doing is making a bigger, better room back here that integrates a little better with our tunnel. Because this is not fun to deal with right now. This is kind of a really crappy little closet. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I think everything up in this main area with our fluid inputs and stuff is set up as it's going to be for now. But what we can do is we can start taking our, if we make a blast chiller, which is probably our next focus. You can see that's kind of difficult, but not too terrible. When we make the blast chiller, we can start to blast chill the latex into rubber, solidify that latex into rubber. And then at that point, we will have access to a handful of other things, including redstone energy cells and fluid cells, because right now we're just using the frames. We can also start using parts of industrial foregoing if we really wanted to as well. But, of course, you guys know I'm not here to shoot straight for the end goal. There are lots of other things that I still want to do along my way. But I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.